the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Swikle, CEO of Two College Brothers Moving, Storage, and Franchising. And I've got a speaker guest at our upcoming Titan Retreat here in September coming up. Today's guest is somebody I've known for a long time. We've got Winston Davis. He's spoken at multiple Titan Retreats in the past. He'll be speaking September 2nd to the 4th this year in less than 40 days now, I believe it is. And Winston traditionally had been on the B2B side of the moving industry with Move Up Consulting. Now, about 2.5 years ago, Winston started his own moving company, figuring that, hey, if I'm going to be working with moving company owners, I need to understand the game and get into the game. And he started Big Lick Moving in Roanoke, Virginia. And we were just chatting right before we started the podcast here. And I am blown away by the growth that Winston has seen. And not only the growth, but the profitability that he's been able to maintain throughout the process. He is currently operating 10 trucks, pushing $4 million in his going into third year in business. He's only 2.5 years in. Come February, he'll be 3 of 2027. And he has managed to maintain a 29% plus profitability, going from 0 to $4 million in revenue in a very short period of time. Winston, thank you for coming onto the podcast. I can't wait to dig into this and find out how you managed to A, grow so fast, and then B, maintain that profitability in growing so fast, essentially starting from 0 and just popping off really in Roanoke. Really excited to hear about your strategies and what you attribute to that. But thanks for coming on, man. If you want to give a quick little recap, it's been a while since you've done a podcast. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into Big Lick and what Big Lick's been doing for 2.5 years.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks, Wade, for having me. It's super big honor. Love the show. Been listening forever, and been on before. Obviously, big supporter of the Moving Titan retreats and just everything that you guys are about. So thanks for having me. I know it's a lot. Yeah. So 2020 opened up Move Up. 3 years prior to that, I worked for a College Hunks franchise. I was a moving sales rep. I worked for like a week as a mover, and I don't think I was a good mover, but I did it for a week, and then they yoked me into the sales office, and I sold moving for 3 years. 2020 hit right during like the middle of COVID pop, and I got the entrepreneur itch. I wanted to take the leap, and so I started Move Up. I did that for years and just learned the business, learned the industry, made a lot of friends, came to events, conferences, and yeah, just me and my wife. We had our first kid, Wyatt, and we moved back to Roanoke to be closer to family. And as soon as we moved down here, I was already in my brain, Wade, thinking like, man, I've got all of this information. I know I can run and operate a really badass moving company. I know I can, but it was just, I was nervous to do it where we were living at the time. We were a few hours away from here. And I was like, I'm not sure if this is my forever spot. So I would be nervous to put the flag in there. And when we moved back home, which is where me and my wife are both from here in Roanoke, it was like, okay, the gloves are off now. And I looked around, the market was super soft. And I will say, when we talk about some of these numbers, market selection is the number one driver to some of this profit. I mean, I think that I certainly am running a good business, but I think people underestimate how important market selection is. Roanoke was a very prime market. It's not a metro. It's not even a mid-market. It's a small market with 100,000 people in our city and then another 100,000 in the county. There's about 800,000 people in a 60-mile radius.
Wow.
In 60-mile big bubble, 800,000 people, not even 1 million people. And we're doing some decent volume and growing with it too. So yeah, I wanted to continue to grow in this space. I love the moving industry. It's built a really great lifestyle for me and my family. So now we're in the thick of it, so now it's like I'm just another moving owner, it's I'm in. So I'm in like all the mafia groups. So yeah.
Well, I assume you mean the Moving Titan groups and the MCOU groups. No, I'm just playing. Well, I mean, and the fact that you started a family essentially while you were starting your moving company, and you've still been able to achieve this growth says
very
a lot.
Young kids.
Yeah, you have two children currently, correct?
So Wyatt was, make sure I do this math right. Wyatt was only like 6 months old when we actually opened Big Lick here. And then Hayes, our second son, he was just born 5 weeks ago.
Wow. Well,
So we're doing
congratulations.
this thanks. There's a lot going on in our family, in our life, but you can either make excuses or you can make reasons.
Yeah.
And I'd rather make reasons. Yeah.
Honestly, that is such a great philosophy. You can't deposit excuses. I always say be a problem solver, not a problem finder, and you embody that. And I know that you are a disciplined person because you run massive ultra marathon races. Like I know you were training for 100 miler at one point.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've completed that one yet, but I know you've
Yeah.
done some big distances. In addition to starting a family, in addition to growing a massively successful moving company in such a short period of time, it's impressive, man. That says a lot to your discipline and your ability to systemize and delegate. But the market selection thing is an interesting point because you hear about some of these companies that they start out and they just explode right out of the gate, and it's usually not in a big market. I mean, we all know Chris Sweet from Greenville, South Carolina. He's putting up massive numbers over there, and that's a relatively small market. I met some folks over from Omaha, Nebraska, which that's a decent sized city, but they're crushing it at our last Moving Titan Mastermind. And so, what do you think makes a good market? I mean, Roanoke obviously sounds like it was prime, but what are you finding in that mid-sized market or even a small market that is beneficial?
Yeah. Well, I definitely don't, I certainly don't have all the data to be like the market whiz guy, but I have some assumptions. So like I think one of the things people get concerned about is, well, I don't want to maybe open a business, any kind of business, right, in too small of an area, especially thinking about home service, right? Because it's like maybe there's not enough people to like buy my services. And I think that is, you would have to be in such a small area to really have that impact you. If you have Starbucks everywhere, like multiple of them, if you have Chick-fil-A's everywhere, if you have Targets everywhere, if those big chain companies are in there and they're in multiple stores in your market, to me, I'm like, all right, well, there's a lot of disposable income. Like people can make coffee at home for 30 cents a cup, but they go to Starbucks and spend $6 or $7. So it's like, I know they have money. Okay. Way more people than you realize have over $20,000 in a savings account that they can dispose, that like thousands of people, And so, and then population, a lot of us will look at pop and a lot of us will look at like maybe median household income or something like that. And so I just kind of look around at that and then I look at competition. So competition is going to probably be like 50, 60, 70% of the thing. So if you know that there's people spending money, then the other half of it is like, is there a real service demand? And then you go and just look at those companies. And you then just have to know, like, do you feel like you could run a much better thing than they're running? And we secret shopped everybody. I mean, I planned for 6 months before I opened Big Lick. Before February 2024, the 6 months leading up, I basically built a business in a box, Wade, and I created the whole playbook, all the sales playbooks, the SOPs, the ops, the dispatch side, but then also did market research and I secret shopped everybody. And we knew everything. I felt like going in, I knew, if somebody was going to quote a large local, if they were going to bind it or non-bind it, if they were going to throw just 3 guys, 1 truck and try to do it for 4 days, or if they were going to load it up with 6 or 8 guys and multiple trucks and be able to be creative in estimating. I knew what their salespeople sounded like. I knew what type of line items were on their quotes. I knew what type of software they used because I got every single quote, or if they didn't use software. Now, I didn't make that dictate my pricing. And that's where if you go listen to like Tommy or some people, it's like people just make the dumb mistake. Hormozy talks about it too. It's like, oh, I'm going to start pressure washing company. What do I charge? Well, I just secret shop everybody else, see what they're charging, and then I just undercut them a little bit and try to do a better spin up on the job. That only works so long. But what we did was we really just learned where all the cracks were. Most of them you're going to find in lead response time is going to be number one. You're going to find it in follow-up. You're going to find it in overall sales process. Do they trial close? Do they paint picture really well? Do they assume sale? Do they roll into booking? Are they really good with dates? Dates are so big for us in moving with scheduling. And then on operations side, how much do they do on the back end? You can see that just online. You don't even need to call them and do a
Yeah.
move with them. You can just see online, are they taking care of people? Are they not when they make mistakes?
Sure. Yeah, I mean you can drive around, especially in a smaller market. You can go just tour around. I've actually gone and watched dispatch. I've staked out dispatches at other moving
Yeah.
companies just to see, are the movers showing up on time? We all dispatch usually around 7, 7:30, sometime in there. What time are they rolling out? Are they lollygagging around for a while? How many guys are showing up? Are they all wearing a uniform? Are they prepping the trucks? Like, do they have a dispatch process or is it chaos? How many trucks are rolling out on a Saturday morning, those types of things. You can see how many trucks they have, and that's interesting to hear about, when you secret shop people, because I think everybody probably secret shops their competition to some extent, and I think a lot of the time it's really you'll need to get the pricing,
Pricing.
see different times of the year. Maybe your booking percentages are going down or your lead volume's going down or whatever it is, and you're trying to see, are we in line with where everybody is? Because the first thing that a salesperson likes to say as soon as they start to hit a slump is prices are too high. Prices are too high. We got a discount. We got lower prices. It's usually not the case. Usually it's a marketing or a lead problem, not necessarily a price problem if business slows down, or it's a sales problem. There's something
Hmm.
else broken because salespeople love to lean on the pricing crutch. And, I heard a mentor once tell me, when I was first starting off, I told him we were the cheapest basically when I first started out. And he's like, why are you the cheapest? Just to like buy market share? I didn't even occur to me that I was trying to buy market share. I just thought that's what you had to do because I didn't know any better at that time. But when you started, did you come in out of the gate with premium pricing, or did you have promotional offers
Not
to,
right
to try to
away.
get market share, build up reviews, get a
Yeah.
reputation?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think those first 2 months we were very affordable. Yeah, very affordable, but it's trying to build your first crew, trying to build second crew, keep those people busy. So there's definitely a little bit of the play there. And then, but I will tell you, Wade, by the 9 month mark, we were the most expensive mover. Probably 80% of the time I would bet 80 or 70% of the time, we were the most premium priced. And we did it in about 9 months. Now, I don't think you could do that. Could we blanket all this information to every market? No. My situation here was my situation, but we certainly came in soft. We got crews going, train crews, they had hours, and then we just ratcheted up as we went.
Yeah, I think you did it. I mean, that's textbook right there. Because in the beginning, you may not be 100% confident in your quality, in your processes. You're going to work out a few different kinks. So it's not fair to a client to pay a premium price when you don't even necessarily know what you're doing. Obviously, you came from the moving world, so you probably knew more than most. But there's going to be kinks. There's going to be stuff that nobody talks about that you start to realize, the little nuances. And you want to get the guys working, because that is a fine balance in the beginning of a startup company, is getting enough work to keep a good crew, satisfied to make a living to support their families and themselves, while also not wanting to give away the farm right out of the gate, because you got to get some profits going in. You can't just do it for free. But how did you navigate that balance early on with making sure, did you have some turnover in the beginning? What was your hiring strategy, your training strategy, to keep guys engaged in the business so that you could build a solid team to ultimately feel confident in raising your prices?
Yeah, so dynamic pricing is one. That's probably the first thing. Is making sure that when you structure your pricing, that you're not linear or fixed across every day of the week, across every day of the month. So dynamic pricing out of the gate is really important to help fill gaps and help have some evenness. You're not going to achieve perfect evenness in this business. No way. It's just the nature. But if you could go look at every moving company's move data, like all the moves completed in the last, or all the quotes they've gotten in the last 2 years, I would almost guarantee every day of the week that's soft is Wednesdays. Wednesdays are historically the softest day of the week when you look through a calendar year, 52 weeks, and you compare them all. Wednesday would be the most. And then middle of the month, okay, we all know that one. That one's pretty easy to figure out. So you do dynamic pricing, but then you also have to override pricing at times. If I know I can't override pricing for 3 days from now and expect that I'm gonna fill it in. I might pick up one little one, but you have to really be thinking about it 2 weeks, 3 weeks away, and sometimes being strategical in what deals you go for. One of the things I learned when I sold moving from 2017 to 2020 is not every customer is a customer you want. I've heard you talk about this with a bunch of people. So like I've learned how to train my sales reps on how to maybe sniff out people that are not great to work with, but then the people that are great to work with, am I okay to take 45% gross profit on a local when I'm a little company? Yeah, why not? The person's really nice and friendly. I can search their name and look on Google and see that they leave 5-star reviews for other people. They're a local guide. Like you put clues together, and yeah, so yeah, you have to just know when to strategically chase down good deals. There's good deals and then there's not good deals, and it's all kinds of factors: timing, time of year, time of month, but dynamic pricing. You got to have that.
Hey movers, it's Wade Swikle, and you're listening to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you've ever wasted money on marketing to the wrong homes, listen up. This is why I use USA Home Listings. They're the only platform in the moving industry built by movers that not only has new home listings and under contract listings updated daily, but now offers enhanced data that can eliminate vacant homes and give you phone numbers and emails for both homeowners and realtors, giving you multiple ways to connect and close more jobs. Their vacancy AI tool removes empty homes so there are no more wasted mailing efforts, and their Tier 2 data takes it further, providing highly accurate contact details for both homeowners and realtors for email, phone, and social outreach. The result? Higher conversions, stronger ROI, and more book jobs with less spend. Check out usahomelistings.com because it's where real movers get real leads. Now, are you using Smart Moving, or what CRM are you using for setting that up? So you're basically setting the periods in your tariff, I'm assuming, for, how often do you adjust that?
I look at my pricing periods 3 months in advance. So like I always have 3 months ahead of me because it's not normal that we're booking moves 3 months out. I mean, there might be one little onesie twosie. For us at Big Lick, a lot of our work gets booked about a month out. And we do get some last minute like week of book stuff, but for us here, like that 3 to 4 week mark out is where a lot of it comes in. So pricing periods, I have them 3 months ahead, but then I'm coming through behind that and I'm making small adjustments in the override section as needed. And sometimes that override is sending it up. It's like, hey, this for whatever reason, a Tuesday is just like really full. And when there's one more spot and you have 4 pendings. Well, if you know your booking rate and you just do math and there's enough days coming, you'll probably get another lead for that date. It's like, you'll get it. So it's sometimes you can go up a little on dates and sometimes you need to cut it a little bit. People underestimate revenue over break even. Revenue over break even is the secret to being very profitable because most people, they really focus on gross profit margin, which is extremely important. But what they don't spend enough time on is their overhead. And so they're fat in their overhead. They have to do so much revenue to turn the first dollar a profit, right? But then they don't understand how digital advertising can help them too. So they're like, well, if I spend an extra 5 or 10 or 15 grand, that's just more expense money going out, right? But they don't realize that like if you just spent that money and they're thinking, well, I don't want to take a 4x or a 5x ROAS on a digital ad, like that's not good. Well, to each their own, but when you actually look at how much money it brings you because the job is coming in over break even, how much money is it actually making you? Well, everything's already been paid off in the month, let's just say. And now that job that came from an LSA or a PPC or a meta ad or mail or whatever that you had to put some money behind it, it's making you all of it's making you money.
Yeah.
Volume is so important in this business. Volume and money over break even.
That's really interesting. I used to be in the camp. I think a lot of us went to Louis Massaro back in the day, and he was big on the 10x ROI, 10x marketing ROI. And I stuck so closely to that I cut a lot of marketing sources early on, or really for the first probably 10 years of business, or at least several years after I learned that principle in the first place. I cut so many marketing sources that were 3x, 4x, 5x, 6x, and all of a sudden we've got trucks sitting. And a truck that is sitting in the parking lot is bringing in a 0% gross profit margin. It's not bringing in anything. Now, if we were to do some kind of dynamic pricing to get those trucks rolling, because our booking percentages were dipping below where they needed to be, all of a sudden, maybe it starts bringing in 20, 30%, but then you can recoup a lot of that by having premium pricing when you have to go rent trucks or at the end of the month. And I've really started to come to grips with that because, we cut our PPC, we cut our LSA because it was only bringing in like a 3 to 4x ROI, and we only kept the ones. And I think that probably stifled some growth for a little while because we'd lose crew members, and then we'd get to the end of the month because those guys weren't getting enough hours. They get another job, or they go to part-time, or they just leave altogether. And all of a sudden, we can't capitalize on those end of the month, extra jobs that we could be charging essentially twice as much as we were charging in the middle of the month. And
Yeah.
that's tough too. And I look at it throughout the year when we're hiring and training guys. I've started to realize that if we are constantly interviewing guys, constantly hiring and looking to top grade our weakest links, we can send out those new guys to load onlys. So basically it could be a full move, a load and an unload, but we'll send them out to the load because that's where a lot of the real training happens and the
Yeah.
real experience is gained as an extra set of unbilled labor, because they're just not ready to justify, a customer paying extra for this guy to not, be fully up to speed. But we're eating a little bit of that labor cost in the middle of the month so that by the end of the month, they're ready to go out on some of their own jobs as a billable guy and we can take on more work. And now we've got, we've kept them working, we've kept them engaged. And then at the end of the month, they've gotten several jobs under their belt at this point, and we can take on more at a premium price to make up for that labor cost that we ate earlier in the month. And I tell that a lot to companies that are trying to find that balance of, how to keep their guys working, how to keep them engaged. Well, when it slows down, send them out, even if it's just for the load up, get them some hours and then send them to another load up somewhere else so that they can get that experience. Or maybe they go out to the full job, but as an extra set of unbilled guys, and then we recoup that later on in the month. I'm curious if you do any kind of like a similar strategy to keep guys working during the lulls, even sometimes in the summertime, middle of July. For us, we had, a couple lighter days. It's going to pick up at the end of the month, though. I'm curious what your strategy there is.
Yeah, totally. What you're saying is very good for majority of people. We have a lot of prosperity here in this market for what Big Lick has become versus what we're compared to. There's a lot of great things going for us. Our policy is we never send a man without getting paid for him.
Okay.
We run 28.1% year to date on fully burdened direct labor. And to be in the 20s is a hard thing to achieve, but that doesn't mean that we send untrained folks. And so basically, to fill in some of the dead spots and whatnot, or how to get guys hours, we're not in storage. We don't have a warehouse. I think that's a whole topic we could spend 5 to 6 minutes on. It creates complexity. We're here to move couches and dressers, Wade, and end tables, and make a lot of money doing those. And I say that in like a comical way, like we move other stuff other than that. But so yeah, we'll bring someone on, but we may start them. Like we do a lot of group interviews on Wednesdays, so that way we start them on Thursday, and then they roll through. They do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because we usually have a little heightened volume on the back end of the week. So we always interview Wednesdays for that, and we also interview on Fridays through the summer. And then as the summer comes down, we'll pull off the Friday group interview because we just don't need it. We just have the once a week. So we're always starting people into kind of like some work, right? And we do a crash course, and then we do 2-day tryout. So they get a shirt, we try them out, We're not committing hours and hours and hours for someone without seeing anything, and they go on something that we can kind of stuff them in. So they're going on a 5 or a 6. Sometimes it's a 4-man. We're not going to put them on a 2 or a 3 because it exposes that new person too much, right? And we give them very clear instructions, like, this is your job today. These are the things. And we also have a move mentor process. So every new hire gets buddied up with a move mentor, and there's a feedback system there from the mentor. But there's also, a training, on the job training requirement. Those move mentors get +2 an hour on all the time when they work, to be basically our on the job trainers plus our backup dispatch. So we have like
Now, is
these
that plus $2 an hour only when they're working with
all
the
the time,
rookie?
all
Oh,
the
okay, so
time.
that's just they're just paid extra to
They're
be
paid
that
extra all the
qualified
time to
qualification.
be kind of this cream of the crop lead that is really being groomed to go to the next level. We're grooming them to then go into dispatch or to go into sales. So it
Okay.
creates another thing that you can title to and give people raises to. And then we do training classes. Okay. So training classes we do about every 2 weeks. And so you always want to train in groups. A lot of people mess up, and this is where I think people in like labor industries, they interview by one, and they also train one by one. Such a killer. You got to interview in groups and you got to train in groups because there's
When
just
you say
attrition.
interviewing groups, are you having like a time block from 10 to 12 a.m., let's say, and then people line up and show up and you bring them in one by one into an office? Or are you
One big,
interviewing like 6 people at the same time all sitting in front of you?
yeah, and it's really not even an interview. It's like an information session. So you do them all at the same time. So we'll bring everybody in at the same time, and it's about an hour. And we have a slide deck, and we show them everything under the hood. We have a slide deck that is built to be very transparent, show them the hard, tough parts about this job, because we're trying to weed out people that don't want to do this. But also we show them all the positives, and we're selling the opportunity, of course. So we do more of like a presentation, and then we do a Q&A at the end, and then we'll handpick who we thought were good from that, and then give them a tryout.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
unique. I haven't heard that approach before. Now, you came from the world of recruiting.
Yeah.
We've worked with you. I've learned a lot from you on recruiting, and how it's an ongoing process where you're recruiting throughout the year. You're trying to top grade your weak links. But how is your process working now that you're actually in the mix with it with Big Lake? What is your hiring recruiting strategy, and walk me through that a little bit. What you look for in
Yeah.
guys? Is there a vetting process before they show up to that group interview information session?
Yeah. Yeah. So the biggest thing that MoveUp does is they have a video vetting tool that basically every candidate puts in a 1 to 2 minute video. And the recruiters are basically, they're not trying to phone interview everybody. They're just trying to get the video from the candidate. So that way then we can look at that and we screen quickly. You're skimming videos, you're looking at a lot. So think of like high volume screening. You need a way that you can look at a lot of candidates, and looking at resumes is going to be a real hard thing to get right a majority of the time. And then trying to phone interview everybody too, I don't get to see them, it takes time, right? So there's got to be some kind of medium. So we find that the video screening is the quickest but most efficient tool. And then from that, people are self-booking into an appointment for one of those group slots, right? So we're letting them pick a time, we're not chasing them down. So we let everybody to the group interview, Wade. We let everybody
As
come.
long as they submit their
As long
video.
as they submit the video, come. And we book them in. And some people are like, well, why would you bring somebody in that you would have no business hiring? Because it takes too much time to sit there and sift. We have everybody come.
Hey everybody, Wade here, and I've got an awesome game-changing announcement for you. Now, I know a lot of you guys are constantly asking, how do we get more leads? How do we get better leads? You're tired of spending way too much money for pay-per-click or buying leads or LSA, whatever it may be, only to get low-paying customers that become a headache with small moves, and you don't get an ROI on those jobs. Well, the exciting news is that our friends at Moversville have just launched a new product called the Realtor Referral Engine, where they not only get in front of realtors, but they command direct response, replies, and referred business. I'm super pumped about this, but don't just take my word for it. My friend Austin Yarborough over at Central Coast Moving and Lucky Day Moving and the Moving Army, I know he's got a bunch of them, just like me. That's why we're friends, has gotten over 40 direct replies from realtors in his first month of using the Realtor Referral Engine from Moversville. And then there's Scott with ABC Moving Systems. He's booked over $30,000 in work and made over 20 new realtor connections. What can an extra $30,000 a month do for your business? Here's what makes this kind of marketing different. These aren't just one and done jobs. These are realtors who keep referring large jobs, can introduce you to the other members of their brokerage, and then those moves can start referring more and more jobs. You have to stay front of mind though. So if you want to learn more about the Realtor Referral Engine by Moversville, head on over to moversville.com and book a quick 15-minute call with my friend Tim, who runs the place. He'll know exactly what your business needs to get set up. He can do it all to make sure that you're getting high ticket jobs at a fraction of the cost of other marketing sources. I think you're going to be happy that you did that. Don't sleep on this one. Go check out moversville.com. Look for the 15-minute intro call with Tim and report back with your results so that I can talk about them here on the show. Thanks for tuning in.
And the other benefit is now you have a full room. You create a demand. You create this vacuum. I have 12 people every Wednesday, 10, 12, 14 people every Wednesday come in here and they're wanting a job. Do you think that the other people in the room are thinking a little different? Probably. They're like, man, these people, there's something here. Like there's a lot of people that want to get the job. And we tell them in the group interview, we're like, look around, count how many people are here. 8 people. Okay, just so you know the statistics, 1 out of 10 people get hired. So probably only one of you will get the job, but maybe 2 or 3 of you will.
Right.
Yeah, and we tell them that, and yeah, we're really transparent. We're really good with people, but we're really transparent, and so high transparency. The video screening is really the big thing that MoveUp does, plus the volume and the ad side. And you just want to pack your room out every week. We never turn it off, even in January, like December, January, February, because those are the months when you get these little rock star, opportunities come up because the company they were at, whether it was landscaping or roofing or whatever, moving, they run out of hours there. You got to scoop them whenever you can. And we're constantly top grading. You talked about top grading. Yeah.
I love that. I love that strategy. Are you background checking these guys? At what stage in the process are they, making sure that you're not getting a felon in there, or, because obviously that costs money.
Yeah.
Are you doing that
takes time
after the information session or after their tryout days or?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll kind of do a couple things in phases. So they come to the group session. We're going to get if they have driver's license, we're going to scan that in. We're going to, any driver eligible people with a license, we're going to run MVRs on the ones that we're interested in. No need to run an MVR on somebody that you're not interested in. And then that group of people will get a tryout day. After the tryout day, we'll then process backgrounds. We'll then do all the nitty gritty, all the I-9 verification, all that stuff. But we're going to do a tryout day and at least just see, like, do they come in at 7 a.m. when we need them to? What's the sentiment and what's the crew feedback? It's just such a burn to do all those things up front, and so much attrition happens, Wade. It's just so hard to get it. I mean, I've been doing hiring for a minute, and I'm not that good at picking, to be honest. The system picks.
It's hard to know until they've actually gone out and they've shown you with their actions. It's hard to know who's the real deal. Usually it's the people that you don't think are going to make it that turn out to be the best, and the people that you think are going to be great turn out to not make it.
Yeah.
That's what I've found, at least. And so have you run into any issues with sending guys out to their tryout prior to a background check where, they totally do something stupid, something gets stolen, something just bad happens?
No, we haven't. And you have to use some, is all this textbook, Wade? We're pretty 99% textbook in our business over here at Big Lick. But, you got to have a little bit of gut and intuition. Somebody walks in that you don't feel safe in your office, probably not wise to send them to a customer's job. And it's also very important who you send them with and what type of job it is, etc. So, there's a couple safety pieces. Like we get when they come interview, we get a safety. We get a release of liability for physical effort. They're releasing us some liability to start. Hey, we're going to send you out. We pay them on that tryout day, and of course, but if they're less than $600 paid in a year, then you're not having to file out some things. And then from a customer standpoint, we're just not going to pick somebody and send them out on a tryout if they're not a good fit. So, you're not just like turning and burning people and sending bodies. That's a big
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
That makes sense. And you're just mainly probably using the same recruiting tools like Indeed and, the job
Yeah, there's no
board
hidden secret.
platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no hidden secret. We just do all of it. You just have to do all of it. Yeah, you have to do all of it and be aggressive, just like in sales to win jobs. You got to be aggressive when you hire. Speed
Well,
to
let's switch
lead is
gears
the
over to
same.
sales a little bit too, because
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it sounds like your sales team's crushing it with that kind of a growth, and they must be selling at pretty high prices. Are you the highest price mover in your market at this point?
Yeah,
Most of the time.
I would say by quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of a booking percentage are you guys rolling with for over the phones and on sites? And what's your sales team look like? Or how many guys? How many consultants? Is there a manager that's overseeing them?
Yeah. Yeah. So booking rate, we look at that lead to book move. So we're really good with lead attribution. We're really good with bad leads. There's not a lot of fudging on numbers in here. So we live around 28 to 32%. So you call it 30%. And, sometimes we have months where we're kind of sneaking down to 25%, which sounds so low, doesn't it, Wade? It sounds low. You hear people saying moving like 40%, here 40s, out here at times. And I certainly
Granted,
believe I believe there's some room for us. Certainly. We have no dedicated sales manager yet in our org chart. We have 3 full-time moving sales consultants they handle everything, whether it's in person, virtual, over the phone. But probably 85-90% of our estimates are over virtual. And we really push for that. We try to be virtual on everything. And we've got processes on when we would go to the home. And then as far as management, that's still a hat that I'm wearing. So I'll run our weekly sales meeting. I come in a couple days a week and I'll listen and I'll give coaching where I see it. And those guys will bring deals to me. I learned this from Tim Krupp. I mean, I went and I've been doing private consulting with him, and I went and visited, and we're waking up in the morning, getting going at his office, and like he's got a message about like an interstate, like a big interstate, and he's like, he has a price of a job that his sales reps can shoot to him when like, hey, I think we could get this. Can you look at it? And so I have systems like that with my people because sometimes you do need to all it takes is just a little bit of vision on it. Looking at the other competitor's quote and finding where like it's not apples to apples and your sales rep just didn't see it, or just realizing that it's a date that you're willing to just be a little more aggressive on. If it's a $15,000 job, even if it's an $8,000 job, we price our interstate in the summer at about 60% gross profit. That's how we build the pricing. And then in the shoulder seasons, like fall and spring, will be about 55%. In the winter, we're estimating it in at 50%. Okay. But if it's a beefy job and it's something worthwhile, like, yeah, we'll move it because there's so much meat on the bone, Wade. So the sales reps have the ability to send stuff to me, but they know I probably don't need to send $1,000 quote to Winston. Like they know when because we've created those boundaries. So that's another thing. A lot of owners, they don't create boundaries with employees. That's a whole nother talk. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I like that. I mean, those are very healthy gross profit margins to be pricing at. And with the dynamic pricing coupled in there, you make up for the 50% or the 45% or the 40% with the 60%, to get it get it to a healthy place. And with three salespeople, about $4 million company, I mean, that sounds about right. They're productive. Anybody who says that they're booking at, our guys book at 80% on everything, it's like, okay, like, let's be realistic. First of all, you need to raise your prices because that's just ridiculous. I'd love to see what your gross profits are on that, if that's even close to true. But I found like 30 to 40% tends to be the sweet spot for a booking percentage. Low 30s is satisfactory. I mean, that means that your prices are high enough to make a strong margin on, and you're getting enough on the books with the lead sources that are coming in. And there's different, I like to sometimes dictate pricing by the lead source. So if you're doing
Yeah.
PPC or LSA, you know that that's going to probably be a lower converting lead source than a referral from a realtor that has sent you 6 of them in the last 6 months. Those tend to be, those might be 70%, 70, 80% from the realtor, but you might only see 10, 15% from, the purchased leads or the LSA type leads, or, anything like that. So that's also stuff that I teach my sales team to take into consideration. Like, where did this lead come from? Let's make sure we get an
Yeah.
accurate referral source so that we kind of know who we're up against, because we know who else is advertising with that platform and who the customers are likely going to be calling, but also knowing that some of those sources are going to book at a lower percent because they might be price kickers, tire kickers and
Yeah.
price shop. So, that's an area, but I'm curious, like, what does the whole process look like from the lead that comes in to the closed move? I mean, are you doing the 5X follow up and the 3+2+1 and the CMED and authority takeovers? Is there anything unique that you found keeps the calendar
We put a
full?
couple spins. I don't think we're again, Wade. I think I'd be really not doing listeners a service if I was like, oh yeah, we're like totally recreating the wheel. But we do a couple little things. So one thing that's really important is whoever answers the phone must be able to sell and book it on the spot. So that's something that's like a policy. And we have some overseas admin that are operational, and sometimes they help with some for some phone support if we're like down to 2 salespeople. But when we're fully staffed, sales reps are answering the phone, and when you answer, you need to be able to sell. And so, if you have like an admin person who doesn't sell, but they answer the phone and then they're setting stuff for the person that does sell, I just think that you're losing some. So that's one. But, our follow-up process in our system is really just we do a 7X on the estimate side, so estimate follow-up, because there's just a gold, there's gold data in 7. Okay, we're not going to chase them down 15 times, but we're going to make touch points to 7. And then on the
Now,
lead
is
side,
this
we
is this for new leads, like leads in progress, or is this for jobs that have
estimate
received a quote? Okay.
opportunity. Yeah, we've already quoted, right? You paid for the lead. You already did all the inventory. You did all the work. So at that point, it's like it's worth it, right? On the lead follow-up side, we follow 3-2-1. But what we've recently here put a little modification on is on the 1, which is your 6th touch, right? Your last touch should be on day 3. We're generating a ballpark estimate for every person who we've not talked to yet. And so
Yeah.
because in smart moving, a lot of companies, they live at like 65 to 75% estimate sent. So that means that like a quarter or even a third of all your leads never even got a number from you, like a price. How could anybody ever buy from you if you never gave them a price?
I
So we
say it all the
decided
time. You can't book a job if you don't give a quote. And we
that's
call
right.
that final send our Hail Mary. We're just
That's
sending an
right.
hourly rate basically to them for 2
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
just to get them on the hook, see if we can re-engage them. But yeah, and what I found when we look at that report, if we're starting to see that creep up over 10% of people that haven't gotten a quote, then we focus on that and we
Yeah.
make sure that everybody's getting a quote, even if, because they're not filling out the quote form on your website for their health. They need to move and they like what they see, or else they wouldn't be giving you their information. So you've crossed a huge Rubicon in just getting them to give you that information, and they're doing it because
Yeah.
they need a service. Now, when you're not getting quotes to people, most of the time it's because of speed to lead. we ran some statistics recently and we saw that like 85% of customers book within 24 hours of submitting the quote. And the number, I think it was something like 50 or 60% book within the first hour or two of booked jobs from the time that their quote came in. So it's so important to get that speed to lead down and be able to treat those like ringing phones. And with 3 salespeople, that's what we're running with in Tampa right now is 3 as well. Sometimes coverage is tough. If you've got guys that are out on an onsite, if you've got guys that are wrapped up on the phones, they all tend to come in at once. It seems like around lunchtime in the beginning of the morning, and then you see a second or third wave towards the end of the day, typically. So a lot of times the salespeople are tied up on the phones. And so that's an area that, it's so important because it really brings down that unquoted job number, but also customers are significantly the most likely to book with the first company that calls them back because they're trying to cross this off their list. They're going to a few different sites. They don't want to pick up the phone because nobody likes to pick up the phone these days. They want to put it all, into the system and let be more passive about it. I want to take a second and tell you all about Tighten Up Training. As a co-founder, we've spent months and months and months and a lot of money pooling together resources from some of the best moving companies in the world. And we're excited to bring this to an online platform available to any mover to use at an affordable price. Tighten Up Training has over 200 videos, including mover training, your highest turnover position, so that you can reduce claims, streamline operations, give your team the tools to perform at the highest level of service that generate repeat and referral business and allow you to charge higher prices, as well as sales training, marketing training, business development, leadership. We're adding more content as we speak. We've got legal training in there. We've even got door-to-door training for the moving industry, thanks to Lenny Gray at the Moving Titan Retreat. We've seen a massive explosion of moving companies jumping on to Tighten Up Training since the last retreat, and people are loving it. And when you sign up and mention this podcast, we're going to give you a free 6-week onboarding course in order to learn how to hold your team accountable and get the entire team on the platform so that you can have the best off-season and summer season that you've ever had. So go to tightenuptraining.com, schedule your free demo today, and look forward to tightening up. But how are you overcoming like the speed to lead issue with a limited sized sales team?
Yeah. So, well, one, we're going to 4 in January. Okay. And I think it's really important to start sales reps between January and March 1st. So important. That's your window. You got to get them in there then for the year. But so, we had a really great boost when we went from 2 to 3. There's just a magic about 3 at that size. At 2, last year we did 2.1 million and we ran with 2 people for the year, right? And then it's like we were going into this third year, and it's like, man, we really know we're going to need a third one. And we almost really could have had 4 this summer, but we suck with the 3 because they're doing a great job. And, I think this ties into how do you catch everything when everybody's on. People are in appointments, people on virtuals, and the phone rings or web form comes in. And these are places where in the fall, this is going to be my biggest focus. This is my biggest job, is tightening everything in sales. But we have a pretty large indirect admin team that's all overseas, and having phone capable team members that are overseas that can be the catch. Basically think of them as the net. Everybody's on the line. Okay, we have a net to at least answer, at least get contact right away. And I'm pretty quick on these guys. If stuff's sitting, I'm like, hey, and I see it, I'm like, hey, like the data's the data. If it's over 5 or 10 minutes, it's just you're hurting yourself so much. But also setting your advertising properly too for your people. So like all your digital advertising right around Friday should be turning off at about 2:00, because a lot of that stuff that comes in after 2 is junk. A lot of it's junk. It's stuff for the next morning. And unless you just like have guys on hand ready to go the next morning, which we aren't like that. We don't just have people show up every day. We're already booking our schedule to the max. So turning advertising off at about 2 p.m. on Friday, and then also turning it off at about 2 or 3 o'clock on Saturday. Having Saturday staffing is really important for sales. You can't go Saturday and Sunday with no sales staffing. We are at the small stage where we are closed Sunday, but I know there's missed opportunity there. We
Mm-hmm.
have Saturday staffing from I think they start at 9 on Saturday. They go to 3. So it's a little bit shorter shift, whereas Monday through Friday, we're 8 to 6 in sales, Monday through Friday. And the way we do the sales rep schedules is whoever works that Saturday, the following week, they're off Friday. So they get a 3-day weekend. So it's a motivator for reps to want to be on Saturdays. And that's a selling day. I mean, that's not just let me answer the phone and set estimates to Monday. It's you need to be quoting people, doing virtuals, booking moves, and you have to inspect that, because what we do is we let them work from home on that Saturday because again, it's the weekend, and so you got to figure out ways to get people to buy into this a little bit. As we go to 4 and definitely at 5 reps, we will fill in Saturday in a similar way. So we have 7 days a week sales coverage. I think will be very valuable for us. And then the next layer is then getting evenings. And that's very difficult. You have to build quite a good size sales team to get that kind of coverage. And it's a lot of work.
It is. That is a challenge. About a year ago, we per listening to Tommy Mello, we went to 24/7 open hours, and we saw lead volume jump 20% almost overnight by going to 24/7. And the way that we did that
Like on your
was,
GBP.
yeah. Sorry, on the GBP. Not to say we were running ads, we weren't running LSA and stuff like that after hours. It was just people that were getting off work, and that was the time that they had to do these types of things, to reach out to get quotes for their move, because they're working, they got families, all this stuff. And I tell my salespeople all the time, evenings and weekends are some of the best times to sell or to work follow-ups,
Mm-hmm.
because people are home, they're more likely to respond and answer the phone,
Yeah.
they're usually not as tied up with the work and the daily stuff, and the competition is usually closed during those times. So you
Mm-hmm.
might be the only person that's showing
Mm-hmm.
up on Google on GBP, when somebody's searching, when they need you, and that's when they need you, you got to come to them. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have a much higher chance of booking. Now, lead volume does tend to be a little lighter in the evenings and weekends, especially when you've got your ads turned off, but you're still getting those leads. One, from your reputation, your existing, fixed sources during that period. And if you have somebody that can cover it, it's a great time to do follow-ups when the phones aren't ringing, and it's a great time to book leads on the spot, because
Mm-hmm.
you might be the only company that's answering the phone during those times. And so the way that we did that by going 24/7, because Google can penalize you if you say you're 24/7 but you don't have some kind of coverage, is through VAs and automated AI voice agents,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't think AI voice agents are at a place where that's going to replace a sales team right now. I think we got some time before
Yeah.
its latency is improved and it's more just congruent and just a smoother approach. But that being said, it still allows you to capture some of those leads, and it allows you to avoid getting penalized by Google in the after hours. And it's better than the person hanging up and never having at least the chance to get that lead into the system.
That's right.
And if it's not coming from one of those lower converting sources, if it's a referral, if it's somebody who knows your company, it's coming from a warmer source, then a lot of times first thing the next morning, if they fill out a form at 11 o'clock at night, that's a fairly understandable time to reach out, if you don't have a live person that's able to cover it. So something that we found, that has definitely increased lead volume and
Mm.
allowed us to book some jobs that we otherwise never would have seen or gotten a lead for. And there's ways to do it, but I wanted to ask too, you must have some overseas VAs type of people working in your
Mm-hmm.
company to achieve 29%. I'm just assuming, but I'm curious what the overall structure of your company looks like beyond the sales team, with ops and other areas aside from the movers and the salespeople, with
Yeah.
BAs, or how you do dispatch, operations management, whatever. Because obviously you got 2 kids, you run crazy marathons, you've got a whole other business, like you can't be working in the business all the time. So I'm assuming you must have an org chart that is able to delegate a lot of the daily responsibilities. What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that, and this is not like pre-planned. So when I come to Florida in September, my talk is about the structure and how to go from how your structure changes from 1 million to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And we're going to paint models at each one of those business sizes. Most of our colleagues are in that 1 to 5 million zone. And there's some really great businesses, or definitely past it, that are definitely in the Titan network. Don't get me wrong, but that's where that's breakpoint one. Like if you ever listen to breakpoint like business theory, it's like breakpoint one is 1 to 3 million, and it's because like you have a great business, you do it yourself, and then you try to hire people, and then you're not good with people, so then you get stuck, and then you stop hiring and growing, and then overhead just like eats you alive, and then you go out of business and in 7 years. That's basically the gist. So yeah, our structure, the structure of your business yields the results, and this is the most important thing for overhead. So we have at the core, and that when I opened, I hired what I called a virtual office manager, and that person handled everything back office in the beginning. They handled everything they did all the scheduling, they did day of changes, they did all the check-ins and closeouts with the crew, they did payroll, they did full cycle claims, they did anything with truck rentals, lodging for overnights, purchasing, okay? Basically anything you could do through a computer, that person did. And so for us, that employee is Franz. He's my guy that's been with me pretty much from the beginning. And he worked with me at Move Up, and I brought him over when I started Big Lick. And so when you open that position, you have to really you have to pay someone very well, and you have to hire the very best talent you could possibly find, because you're going to ask a lot of them. And as you grow, you branch that off, and so you just peel off the stuff. So now at about 4 million, we have really, his role is now being more of an operations manager, but he's fully remote overseas in Bolivia. Okay. But he's truly the one that runs most of the company. Okay. Not a physical operations manager. That's W2 in my office. So we've got him. We also have a move coordinator who is also overseas. And that person, they do a little bit of kind of like lead generation with like working data lists, but they do like confirmation heavy. They really make sure that the work that's booked, all that information and inventory and the driveways and all that stuff is like super crisp, and the notes are crisp before that day of job. And they handle a few other things, but think of them as like a nice piece that you could add that actually doesn't cost you any money, because you can have them do like text outreach to homeowners, and they can pay for themselves. The third one that we put in is a crew manager. So for us, the crew manager, I had a need like just dealing with the guys. Like I had just like, when we were going to 2 million, it was like, dang, this is this is a lot, right? And everybody wants to come to you. So we created a role that was mainly, so they're in charge of driver compliance. So they were the person that monitored Samsara or whatever people use, if you use Motive or whatever. So they managed all the ELDs, the HOS. They look at every driver violation. They give all the coaching for drivers. They're the ones who schedule driver training, schedule all their DOT exams, all that stuff. They have a track on when people's DOTs are expiring, when their background checks are expiring. We need to renew those every 2 years. They're who submit new drivers to insurance, take drivers off insurance, all that stuff. So think drivers compliance, and then also just crew compliance. So like all the consequence system, when you have write-ups and you have to issue those, they have to get documented. Like what we had in our first 2 years was we were giving write-ups and they like weren't being documented well, and it's just like stuff's floating around. So we have a person that's what they do. They make sure that those things are documented.
Kind of like
And
HR in
he
a
has a
way.
piece of HR for sure. He does all the onboarding virtually with new employees, as much as we can do virtually as possible. So he has a very important job. And so we
And this
were
is your crew
pumped.
coordinator, and it's a remote position, right?
Fully remote. Yep. We call him a crew manager. You do whatever, you can call him whatever you want. I just made it up. There's no textbook. There's no book out there that said, "Hey, call him this." I just
Right.
said this sounds good, and there's a point to that. And now we've just added our fourth virtual team member, which is a claims manager. So up to this point, the Franz, the operations manager, the first virtual team member that we had, he was still handling all the claims too, which is now, as you scale, I mean, stuff comes up and it takes time to do a good job with it. For us at 4 million, it's not a full-time job. So we were able to find a great person who could fit in part-time 4 to 5 hours a day, but 5 days a week. And so they're starting Monday. And what I've done in my model, Wade, I just made it really simple. My math on my numbers is for every $1 million of revenue, we need to add one virtual team member. You must have one for every 1 million. Okay. And like if you just do the math on that, like your indirect admin's always fine. Then you have dispatchers. So how do we like run everything in the morning? Well, we have dispatchers that are who are here doing the boots on the ground. So they're doing truck prep, inventory management, truck errand for drop off, pickup. They're doing spot checks for quality. They're doing the mover training classes, just whatever needs to get done. But the big thing is dispatch, in the morning. So that guy comes in at 6 and he stays till about 2 or 3 o'clock. He's also the hot seat. So it's important to have a hot seat. Hot seat is like, I got a crew lead eligible guy that we can send if just we're in a pinch. So you got to have that guy in the bullpen. Okay, got to have that relief pitcher type setup. We're actually starting a second dispatcher in August, and it'll be a PM shift. It'll be they come in at about 11 and they work till 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. and they're receiving all the afternoons. And so basically our model with dispatchers is you need to have a dispatcher for about every $2 million. Now what we just got we got stuck a little bit the last few months. I've been working a little harder than I needed to, Wade, because we've been at this like $3.5 million pace size, but with one dispatcher. And what we did to overcome that in a short term is, and I'll pause in a minute. I know I'm going through a lot, but this is the system. Is you just overload the morning. So we just bring 2 crew leads in every morning at 6 a.m. with the dispatcher just to have enough hands on deck. But our business right now is we still prep everything in the morning, and it's such a fast pace in the morning when we're running. We have 10 trucks, but we have 4 trucks that are rentals for the summer. So we have 14 trucks here that go out, and it's a lot. So we're moving into that PM model where every truck is received and prepped right at the same time when it comes back in. And then all there is in the morning is maybe just a couple that need to get prepped and tuned up. So that way your AM dispatcher is much more able to be the trainer, the energy guy, the accountability guy, which is what you need out of that person to really lead and not just be a truck prep guy. So that's the indirect admin. We've got the virtual group, and we've got dispatchers, which all dispatchers is they work up the ranks in the field, and they're basically movers. They're movers. They're really good. So then we just bump them up.
I love
And that's all
that.
you
And
need.
did you say you also had an ops manager, or is that your dispatch? Is that the same thing as the dispatcher?
That operations manager is that main virtual team member.
I see. Okay.
And what's
Okay.
important for him or her is that they are the schedule. They're the schedule. So the reason he makes Big Lick so much money is because he is a wizard and so good at how to max capacity every day. He knows how to figure out how to rearrange crews, adjust schedule, fit jobs, stack jobs. That's the number one thing he does in my business. Really, I think that catapults the money, because what if you don't have somebody really good at that? Well, you have to constantly be telling sales. If marketing and sales are ahead, you're constantly suppressing sales reps and saying, we're full. And you don't want that. As much as you just want it, you just got to let them run as much as you can. And every now and then we got to pull them a little bit. But you got to have somebody that's working the schedule hard, big
Yeah,
time.
I agree with that. Well, Winston, I have more questions, but I do have to wrap it up. I've got
I
a
know,
hard
yeah.
stop. And This has been a phenomenal episode. I'm going to go. I haven't really dug into your podcast, but I wanted to give you a quick little opportunity to promote what you have going on. If people want to listen more about what you have to say, or just get in touch with you for either Move Up Consulting or just to pick your brain, or just hear more into this philosophy, because this has been really valuable information. I've got a bunch of notes here. I did want to ask one more question too on what the top or any unique lead sources that you might have that aren't repeat and referral that are performing at the top level. If you can say that real quick and then give yourself a little plug for your podcast and yourself, by all means, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, well, I don't know that it's necessarily unique. Again, I don't think we're recreating the wheel over here, but Meta ads for us have been significant with high grade commercials in the ads. No still ads, all video, owner centered videos. Okay, the owner or founder being the anchor in the video, and having multiple of them, multiple that you can rotate, so ad fatigue is low. So you have different videos through the different parts of the year. You got to have a winter one, you got to have a summer one, you got to have a spring one, you got to have a fall one, you got to have a follow-up video. So that way, if they click the link but then they don't fill out the form, they get a second video that's like, hey, forgot to fill out your moving estimate? No biggie, just click here. You got to have lots of resources in that. So Meta, that's been a good just volume thing. And then, I really appreciate being on. Certainly, there's a ton to talk about, which is why people should come to the retreat, right? If you don't have your ticket, get your ticket. It's best money spent. I've been at almost all of them. And so, I'm going to talk about a lot of this stuff, but deep dive and share everything. I will share every bit of numbers at the event because I'm really open. I love helping people and being transparent. So, if you're wanting to touch base with us, hiring for sure. Move Up is a great resource. Juan, the operations manager there, is significantly skilled at what he does and their group of people. And then, the Moving Game, that's a podcast we started August last year with. Wade, I really just did it to be able to have like a little digital journal. I have so many people ask questions now that I open Big Lick. And it was like, man, I just can't answer everybody's question on a phone call. So it was actually a necessity for me. I needed somewhere to just kind of pour a little bit. And
I get it. Scratch that itch.
Yeah, scratch the itch a little bit. And, it's been pretty cool. Says, I don't know if that's a lot or not in moving.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some others, but that's solid, man. I know one of my franchisees, pretty sure he listens to yours before he listens to mine. So you're definitely creating some value. He tells me about it all the time. Andrew over in San Antonio, if you're listening, he recommends your podcast big time. I need to dig more into it, but I love it, man. I love how there's more and more resources coming into this business because, I mean, you entered it at a great time, and you've not only been able to get that information, but you've been able to help so many other people along the way. And give back. And I'd love to see, Smart Movement's doing a bunch of their stuff. Some of the other CRMs are doing some of their things. We've got podcasts now. We've got the multiple conferences each year and a lot of different B2B vendors that specialize in moving now. And it's been really cool to see the industry, bloom like that. So, but thank you for everything you do, Winston.
Yeah, man.
This has been an awesome episode. Can't wait to dig into this deeper at the Moving Titan Retreat. About a month away now, probably by the time this airs. September 2nd to 4th here in Tampa Bay, Clearwater Beach to be exact, and go get your tickets. We are
gotta get a ticket.
Expecting a big crowd out there and a lot of these amazing back of the room conversations. So thanks again. And thank you all for listening to Winston Davis with Big Lick Moving in Roanoke, Virginia, and Move Up Consulting. And come check them out next month. Until then, we'll see you later and tighten up.
Tighten up. Thanks, Wade.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you would like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.